I'm going to ask you some hard questions in this one.
Okay.
Because Mom likes to summarize everything about the dark times. And I want to know.
See me closing my eyes.
She doesn't like to talk about it.
God, I don't. In fact, I get on the video because Lily asked me, and I'm her mom, and I like to help her, and I don't mind being on it too much, but...
Do you remember living on Joyce Lane and the constant phone calls that we would get?
Well, let's preclude that with Lily's dad had a lot of issues. He had a lot of problems. He did things he shouldn't do.
You got married young.
I was very young. I met him at 18. I was barely 19 when I got married. I didn't know anything. I was very, young.
How long did you date before you married?
That's maybe a year. A year. And we got married. And the first 5 or 6 years, we weren't perfect, but he was pretty good. He did normal things, worked, earned a living, and all that stuff. We owned a restaurant.
He did construction.
He had a construction business, which he closed down because we bought this restaurant. We owned a restaurant. And again, I was only 19. And then I had a child. Then I had Lily. I had my first daughter, Marcy. And then I had Lily. So I had 2 children. I owned a restaurant. Then when my husband hit his ex-husband, now he's passed away, and I say, God bless his soul. His mother, who remained my dear friend my whole life.
She was a sweet,
she was a
loving,
wonderful. She
woman.
made up for all the negative things I had in my marriage was made up by my mother-in-law. So on giving a little I don't mind talking about it too much now because anybody that it might hurt is now dead and gone, except for one lady. And I don't like to say a lot about it because it could hurt my children or my other daughters may not want it. I don't like to talk about bad stuff, but I'll just say quickly for those that might be struggling, I had a terribly struggling early life.
When did he start going downhill?
Well, he had little snippets of it when we first got married, little things that you might think, well, why did he do that? It's little stuff. But he really started going downhill in his mid-30s, making just every bad decision that you could make, he made.
When he decided to renovate our house, the plan was to renovate the house and sell it for money and then move to the Caribbean.
Yes. And we had a restaurant that we sold very successfully. We made a lot of money on it. When you're married to someone who is the aggressor and who is the controlling factor in your relationship, they don't listen to you. I could talk to the wall 100 times and he was not going to listen or do anything sensible that I would tell him. So I have to say that it didn't matter what I said, he is not going to do it. And if you are going through struggles with someone in your life like that, it could be your husband, it could be your child, it could be a parent, you could be you might have a narcissistic parent in your life or child, you're not going to be able to tell him what to do because they're not going to listen.
How did he affect your confidence as a person?
Oh, I was beaten down. It was very bad. He was 6 years older than me. I was in college. I never worked. So here's this college girl studying theater, never had a job except babysitting. I get married and all of a sudden we buy this restaurant and it was very successful. But we worked really hard. I mean, hard. I worked so hard for years in that restaurant. I just worked.
But he worked hard too, or did...
No, he got out of his hard work after about a year.
And you carried it through. You did the front of the house. You were the personality.
I waited tables,
then you hired a chef.
Yeah, I hired a chef, but I also started a catering business, so I ran the restaurant, did the catering business.
You're always really
I literally worked while I was in labor. Ran to the hospital, had the baby. Seriously.
2 days after?
2 days after, went back to work. Took the baby, sat on a chair because I had events to handle, and I became the breadwinner at a young age. I was doing all kinds of
stuff. Eventually, because after 15 years, you sold the restaurant for a good amount of money.
Sold the restaurant. He did successfully sell the restaurant. He was artistically talented, but emotionally and mentally, he was challenged.
And
he was smart.
He never had a father.
He didn't have a father figure that was right, schizophrenic father, and so he had a lot of problems. And when you're young, you don't see all that when you marry. You just see, oh, I like him, he's nice, good looking, handsome. We'll have a good whatever.
And the dream was for us to move to St. Bart's, open a bed and breakfast, flip the house that we were living in, use that.
We made a good investment. I'm the one that made that, and I was always good at real estate. I said we should buy this house. It's a good deal.
Beautiful neighborhood.
We bought a beautiful little old cottage in the premier neighborhood.
And he renovated that.
But he wasn't sensible.
The thing about him renovating
It's painful for me to talk about this. In 30 years, it's still painful.
It seemed like whatever he had his hands on with the renovation process, it was like cursed.
Yes,
it
was
built
cursed.
The second home, the
Cursed.
carriage house, and it literally fell.
Collapsed. This has been a long time ago. And I don't really like talking about it because it was very difficult. I had 2 little girls, and I was now expecting another baby, and he was making this fireplace. Now, he was artistic, so he was making this beautiful fireplace, making it beautiful. But in the meantime, we had no toilets where the children and I could use the bathroom.
We would have to walk down 3 flights of steps.
3 flights of steps to go to the bathroom. A toilet would have only cost $89. It was plumbed, but he wouldn't put the dick-gone toilet in. And so he went to the craft store and he bought plastic bundles of grapes. You know, the kind people put in bowls. He was clever, and he would dip them in concrete and make a frieze on the fireplace mantle so it would be so beautiful. And I'm looking at those concrete grapes thinking, wow. He's making concrete grapes, and the children and I don't even have a toilet to go into. And I'm a practical person. And I know that's a silly story, but if you ever have dealt with somebody with mental illness, you can maybe relate to this. And I used to think, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Before that, we had a reprieve from that because we lived in St. Bart's for 1.5 years, and you lived there with his mother, my grandmother.
Okay. So Dorothy, we decided that with no toilet and no heat in the house, and it was November, and he decided to knock the fireplace wall out, a different wall. And then we had no furnace. So here we are with 2 children, and I'm pregnant, no fire, no heat, not toilet, nothing in this renovated house. It was falling apart. So Dorothy and I decided we would take the children and we would go to the Caribbean. We had some money, so
Caribbean,
it was warm.
A tropical island.
And let him finish the house.
Yeah, that sounds like
that was the best year of my life.
Let me get out of this situation. So you did.
I took my 2 little girls and Dorothy. It's not like I was down there by myself. Dorothy and I went.
Dad stayed with.
He stayed with his dad
father
in the house with no heat, no toilet.
And he stopped sending us money. So then you had to.
Well, I was pregnant. Now let me just go through that story. Okay. I was expecting Chloe. And I knew that the hospital on the island that we were going to be on would probably be fine. I'd already had 2 children, all natural, so I wasn't too worried about having the baby. So we went down, and the plan was he was going to come a couple weeks before the baby was due, so he'd be there with me, but of course he didn't come. And Dorothy, and I had to drive a little Jeep clutch.
Pregnant, in labor,
and drive myself to the hospital.
And drive back.
Well, what happened was I went into labor, but the baby didn't come right away, so they kept sending me home. And every night at 5 o'clock, they said, come back.
And he purposely didn't want to come.
No, he didn't want. Oh no, he didn't want to be there. No, I think he did that on purpose too. But that's all right because I had a lovely friend.
Because you had three. That was your 3rd, so you knew how to pop that baby out.
Well, it was a little hard, but whatever. I did it, and I had Dorothy, my sweet Dorothy, who helped me with the kids, and we had a wonderful 1.5 years there, and I still have friends there.
I felt boring. I felt like I missed Dad. I was sad.
You were sad, but it's because you didn't understand everything.
But then we went back to the house, and then that's when the real hell started. It was real hell.
It was a rough year.
It was so dark, that house.
Everything that he tried to do, and it's sad, really. Everything he tried to do, he didn't make sense. It's like,
he started embezzling money from all
he
his
started
friends.
Taking money from people, and he got in trouble with doing things that were wrong. Illegal. It caused huge pain for me and my daughters, and it was just
everything he did, it seemed to be cursed. He painted the whole outside of our house, this big huge house with the walls and everything. He painted it pink.
It was a pretty shade of pink.
It was like a tropical pink.
It was pretty though.
No, then it started to peel
because he didn't prepare it, but whatever.
It started peeling.
He just was trying to do too much, and he was mentally disturbed to begin with.
He stole
money from people.
Plates.
Well, he just did things wrong.
And
he had no
somebody else's license plate on our car, so they wouldn't be repossessed.
He had no moral character.
He thought he was above the law. He thought he was Yeah, he didn't have any respect for
the law or other people. He had no respect for anybody else.
It was weird,
None.
right?
Me, his mother, he caused his parents to lose every penny they had, and they lived in poverty until we helped take Dorothy in, and other
Literal
family members
poverty.
tried to
And
help her.
He stole my grandfather's identity because my grandfather was schizophrenic.
Okay.
But the weird thing is, he did love me and Marcy and Chloe a lot, right?
He did love his children, but
He didn't know how to love.
I couldn't ever leave them with him and have any peace of mind.
Yeah.
Never. Every time he would have the kids for a few hours, I'd always be worried. And so I'm talking about this because, well, Lily asked me to, although I don't want to.
So I think this is just about what is it like being married to a narcissist and someone mentally troubled.
Boy. You know what? If you're in a situation like I've been talking about, my situation was very extreme, except I had a wonderful mother-in-law who tried to help me. She tried to help her son, but she couldn't help him. I had good parents who also tried to help me.
His mother she was living with us for a while, but then she realized like there was no money, and she ended up moving out into a really small
little tiny apartment.
And she would walk to work. She got a work at McDonald's.
She worked at McDonald's.
And she worked at McDonald's for
years. But
and they made her a special job where she just gave out little ice cream cones. She got a write up in the newspaper. Yeah. People loved her.
She had that special something.
She had the Holy Spirit.
And she was a Christian woman, and no matter, and you know, later on he and I divorced. I left. I said I can't take any more. And even after I left, I shouldn't say this, but I'll tell you this. I rented my house, lost my home, lost everything, and he would break into my house when I was at work and steal my checks and write checks.
He stole your ring too, your wedding ring.
Stole my wedding ring.
But he did put a tomato garden in the...
He did that. He gave me a tomato garden. But you know what? I'm not a bitter person. Even when he did all this, I wasn't bitter. I just wanted to start over. I just said, I just have to start over. And I got a job.
But it never ended.
Because
you know why? Because he was a bitter person. And that bitterness, he never got over. Yeah. You divorcing him, you separating him. And that bitterness, even when he did get other girlfriends later on, he was obsessed with trying to take you down.
Mm-hmm. He was
until it really broke his heart. It killed him, and he had open heart surgery, brain aneurysm, and he passed.
Really hard
like
times.
The time when we had to run through the woods.
Well, that's because he had stolen money from people, and they would call and threaten, and we got scared. I was like, I can't stay in this house.
And they said, I'm going to come and kill you and your whole family.
He said, I guess.
Remember?
Yeah, block all that out of my head. That's
Grandma
okay.
had to come.
My parents came and got us, but. You know, people do say things that they don't necessarily mean. So he could have been true, but we were scared. I was scared.
Yeah. And then Dad would always run out of gas constantly.
I have never run.
But he never did that with you. He did it only with me in the car.
He probably did it with Chloe and Marcy too.
Yeah, he did it with us. But for some reason at that point he wasn't.
We were separated, and I didn't.
A couple of years where that happened, where he was constantly running out of gas. Like that's like a mental disorder, and he would know he was going to run out of gas because he always had the gas canister. So when he did, he could walk to the gas station and get gas.
Here's what I have to say. I had it looks in my life, and I have a good life now.
Yeah,
I want to say a wonderful and blessed life now. But I went through probably 20 years of really dark times, and I've learned to survive them. And if you're living with someone or dealing with someone that sounds kind of like what I've dealt with for a long time, you can't change the person. You cannot, because I've beat my head against the wall trying to get this man to do right. And I couldn't, and I never could. Even after we separated and divorced, took 7 years to get a divorce from him. It just went on and on. Give your heart to the Lord and pray, and let the Lord bring you to a decision that you can live with. I didn't want to leave my husband. I felt committed, even though as bad as it was, I had hope all the time that he was going to straighten out. And then there came a point when I knew there was no straightening out. There was nothing I could do to ever make things right, and my children were in danger. When we left, because people were getting threatening phone calls, I said, my kids are in danger, and I have to get out. I didn't have any money, because he'd taken all my money. There was nothing.
Finally the police came and
arrested him, and he went to court.
We got the house taken from us, and
he didn't pay the
bills. You had to find a new house to live in.
I found a house. I rented a house. I got a job.
Worked 90 hours a week?
I worked all the time because I felt I had to put a roof over my kids' heads. Sometimes they resented me working, but we had to live, we had to eat. There was no help for me. My parents were ordinary people. They helped me with what they could, but they couldn't provide a home for me. They didn't have the financial ability to say, let me rent you a house. And I couldn't live with them because there wasn't enough space in their home with me and all the kids. I wanted to be on my own anyway. I didn't want to live with my parents. So we found a place to live. I had some funny stories though. This is kind of funny. I left my diamond earrings. I had some jewelry that was nice because in the early years we had money, and I left them at my mother's house in a little cup, cleaning them. And she called me. My mother was from South Carolina, and she called me and said, Susie, she talked like that, Susie, did you leave something in a cup? Because I just grinded it up in the garbage disposal. I went, oh, Mom, you ground up my diamond earrings. And she felt so bad. I went, well, what could I do? And she goes, I can claim it on my insurance. Don't worry. And she made a claim because she accidentally ground up a pair of expensive diamond earrings. And I got that money and I bought a car for my kids and I. Used car.
That pop-up gave you his Oldsmobile that had the golf. My grandfather was obsessed with golf.
And I didn't have a car.
Old, beaten down Oldsmobile.
Okay, that's another thing the ex did. The only car we had, he sold it. And then I had no way to get to work and take the children to school. And I'm thinking, oh, I could just go on and on about it.
And there were things that happened after you guys.
Yeah, we don't have to tell everything because it got worse. But you have to see the humor and stuff. Me driving to work with my dad's Oldsmobile with the golf ball on the hood.
The thing. What do you want to say about narcissism? And
well, God help you if you're married to one because it's not easy. I don't know. Pray and get out. I don't know what to say.
Spectrums of it. He had
borderline personality disorder. I always find the humor in stuff because if you can find the humor and laugh, it can get you through. We were court ordered to do an evaluation. He asked for it, or I asked for it. I don't know. And then mental evaluation. And I'm a little bit of a nervous, anxious person. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I said, well, if I have to be evaluated, he sure as heck needs to be evaluated. So we did it, and I came out actually very well. They just said I had a tendency to be guilty, which I do. I admit I'm guilty about everything. And when he was going in to have his done, I told the psychologist, I said, just let me tell you something. Don't take a check from it. If he writes you a check, don't take it. And he could tell the psychiatrist was looking at me, oh yeah, right. I didn't, that's all I said. Well, 3 weeks later, the psychologist called me and said, I don't know what to say, but the check he wrote, it bounced. But not only did it bounce, it was written on a closed account. And I said, well, I told you not to take a check from him. Why did you take a check from him? Because that's a big deal when you're getting evaluated by the court and you write the psychologist a bad check, But I told him.
And did he pass?
No, he had a lot of problems. And it's sad. I'm only laughing now in retrospect. It was very sad. I mean, never wished him any ill will. I just didn't.
This affected our whole family.
For a long time.
His mother.
Poor Dorothy.
Really bad. And George, too?
Yes, he did a lot. Yes, he tried to take us all down.
He wanted to hurt everyone.
He hurt a lot of people. And people that, if there's anyone in my family that are watching this, they know what I'm saying is the truth. There's nothing.
Even people that we don't even know. He's hurt other people.
A lot of people. But I think one of the things I'm trying to tell people about this is that if you're dealing with somebody like that, I don't think you're ever going to get.
Only God can.
That's right. Them. Maybe God can change them, but God can change you, and God can help.
You need to know when enough is enough.
Well,
right?
God, the Bible does not want you to have separated marriages, but you get to the. I got to the point where we were not safe.
We're in a fallen world, and there's
we weren't safe.
Something's unhealthy, and
yeah. And I'm only doing this. She asked me to, and I'm not comfortable with it. But then I start laughing about stuff because what are you gonna do?
What you gonna do? Give it to God.
But you know
you're
what?
You're gonna give it to God, and you're gonna live in the past.
I've done that already. I have given it to God. I'm done with all this past. I don't even like talking about it because I'm happy now, and I have a good husband. I have one thing. He gave me the best gift of all, my children, my 3 beautiful, magnificent, and wonderful daughters. And they're my pride and joy.
One reason why I want to talk about this is that people see our life now and they don't see you. When you see somebody, you assume, oh, that's what their life is their whole time. You don't see all the struggles and what they went through and all the wildernesses and all those seasons of darkness that you go through. And my mom had mentioned before in the video before about the darkness, and I was like, well, you need to really put it into a story and give us like make it to life so we can hear it and understand it and know it.
Well, I have lost everything I've ever owned, not once, but 2 times in my life. I don't need to talk about it all. And I mean everything, down to nothing, nada, just me and the kids and the clothes and some furniture, whatever. But I've struggled to come back, and I have come back. I've had...
Not even much furniture.
I've had some really hard times in life. Many people have had things way worse than me. My husband did not abuse my children. He didn't always do right, but he had a lot of things he did do right. But he created a lot of issues for people, but other people have had a lot worse than me. A lot
you
worse.
Wonder how people get through it. And most people end up on the streets dying of drug overdoses. And I've had a lot of friends who have overdosed and died at a young age. And it seems like there can be curses on your family line, and it can continue down generation to generation. But if you have faith and you have God, then God can break all of those curses. That's why he died for us, and that's why we have his grace, so we don't have to be punished for the crimes of our family members, right? You know?
And I don't really enjoy saying bad things about my past. I'd rather talk about the future and the good stuff. But if
it makes you more relatable to people.
If you can relate to this story, dealing with someone in your life that's been very, very, very difficult, and you've come through it, or if you're not through it yet, you can get through it, because I did, and I had lots of it, lots of dark times.
And you never thought your life would be this good right now.
Nope.
Yeah, see how God can change your life and your destiny. Do you have anything else to say?
I know it's a silly thing, but if you can pray for God to show you the light and the way and show you a path out of the situation that you're in, I think eventually you'll find that path. It may be hard, it may be long. You don't know how long it's going to take. 20 years for me, seriously, 20 years. But finally, the path was broken.
Okay. And you have to have hope, just like with all this COVID
and
stuff.
There's something else that's important, is forgiveness. You have to forgive the person that has hurt you, or somebody that's taken something from you, because you're just going to get eaten up with bitterness. That forgiveness, I know people have had children have been murdered. I've heard a lot about this, and forgiving the person that has taken something from you is important. Even though it's hard, it's bitter, it's hard, it's the last thing you ever want to do. But if you can forgive the person that has hurt you, you'll be better.
Because in the end, people are sick, people have mental illness, people are disturbed, and people have demonic entities, unclean spirits that are controlling them. We are not wrestling with flesh and blood. And when we realize that, that can help us put distance between ourselves and it. So thank you all so much for listening to this. I really appreciate it. You can leave me a comment of your struggles. We'll pray for you, and we will see you.
Wait a minute, I have one more thing. If you have a good friend in Christ, that person can help you a lot. Choosing the right friends around you. I didn't have that. I had no one to help me. Really, I didn't.
Go to someone that has your best interest at heart. All right, see you all in the next one. For joy-filled content of my life in Thailand with my Thai family, please go and subscribe to my main YouTube channel, Lily's Life.